The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to It Mondays here at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark, as we are ready for some football, but we'll still spend some time on Nebraska basketball.
It's a great way to put it. We're ready for football. What we saw Friday.
And, you know, that sounds a little shorthanded towards Fred and the company and Coach Williams and what they did. It was hilarious. I was catching a little bit of the women's game yesterday, and I wasn't paying as close of attention to it as should have. I didn't wake up from the old Sunday snoozer in time to see Tip, and I asked the bunny, my wife, what's going on here? I mean, it's kind of out of hand, and I can't verbatim repeat on air and keep my job what she said to me, but it was hilarious. She's like, oh, it's totally home court for Oregon State. They're getting away with murder at Oregon State, and it was exemplified by the double elbow to the midsection. You get dropped like you're one of Elijah's favorite soccer players on the pitch. Difference being there was actual contact this time, and Nebraska fought hard but couldn't get it done. But we'll dive into some basketball, some final thoughts on this magical 2024 season for Fred and company and the Husker women as well. We'll dive into spring football as we are excited to see where Nebraska can go. The gift of high expectations. That comment rings and keeps ringing in my ears. The step towards those high expectations, very, very real. And they get the rubber meets the road for some players, some young guys, some old guys. Let's get you your starting lineup, our starting five. We shout out the first five in the stream. You're always welcome to catch the show live on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Give that Twitter handle a follow. Find us on different platforms on social media. Can hear us in Central Nebraska, ESPN Superstation, Kearney, Hastings, Grand Island, News Talk 900. Our friends in Columbus, here in Lincoln at KFOR, Facebook and Twitter. And, of course, our friends in Omaha, AM 590, Omaha's ESPN. Had a great time at Ameristar on Friday. Loved all of you coming up and saying hi to us, including the two lovely gals who bought and brought Rumpelman shots to us to clear out our cobwebs.
Yeah, we got to stop that being a thing.
They prepared us for the under 16 timeout as the game resumed with Nebraska
and
A&M.
the parlay that was put together.
Jeez, that was horrible.
Worst of all time.
We should have played
that was
some sort of sad, moving funeral music as we lit that parlay on fire.
Yeah, Friday was just a disaster in all ways,
really
shapes, and forms. Terrible shots, terrible parlays. The Husker game ended up with a terrible result. Just like everything about Friday could not have gotten
Wisconsin, lock of the year.
Remember what we were talking about? Maybe it was off air about us maybe going to the Final Four and making the trip. Do you remember that part?
No,
because I remember that conversation happening, and I was
about.
like,
I have no clue what you're saying.
I'm like, guys, hold on. But, here we are. It was funny. Good times.
That's every Nebraska fan right before tip-off. That's every Nebraska fan on Beale Street. That's every Nebraska fan in line at the kiosk.
That's not saying that we think it's going to happen. That's saying we need to have contingency plans in place should it happen. Because that's what happens in the NCAA tournament is sometimes anything happens. Sometimes Texas A&M shoots 60% from three.
Yeah. And guess what? Okay. Sometimes they don't, and they still scare the hell out of a top seed, the best defensive team in the tournament.
That was a good matchup.
Let me say this. We'll get our shout-out here in a moment, but I don't think you can feel as bad, or does it feel a less worse hurt-wise if you're a Nebraska fan? And I ask this, seeing what what A&M did to Houston last night. And they did the same thing to Houston as they did Nebraska. And Houston has some pros. Houston has, they won, but they fouled out 4 of their starters that are as athletic and as quick as what A&M has. And there was no stopping Wade. There was no, and that kid shot like he had a blindfold on. You want to talk about coming back to earth? The streakiness of Mr. Wade. He was 5 of 24, but still had damn near 20 points and hit every big 3 down the stretch. I mean, they had a 13-3 run to close things out. And old Garcia drilled the only 3 of his life to send it to overtime. But my point is you saw what they did to Houston a second time. Right? They played them in the regular season. They were down 21 and closed like a freight train. Listen, Friday was a surprise. Not that Nebraska lost. It's that they just got destroyed.
Got blitzed.
They got blitzed, and I'm not knocking or bagging on Nebraska. They played their heart out, but they couldn't match up, and they had no answer. We'll have some comments from Fred and company, but it was just a tough matchup, and Fred just wasn't making excuses. He said what it was. And A&M is a different basketball team, and they are playing like the preseason accolades that they received. The best team in the SEC. Well, they're no longer alive, but, man, they looked like it for about 2.5 quarters since March Madness started off. 489-1240, 800-825 5865. Also take some of your comments in the stream. We'll get to plenty of spring football as it was underway, but was the loss and the way it went down a surprise to you as a Nebraska basketball fan? Creighton, God love you. And I know there's some Nebraska fans that are not ever going to feel that way, but that was gutsy. That was a gutsy double overtime win against Dana and Oregon. And Creighton had enough gas in the tank. They are headed to Detroit. That was really, that and the Houston game were the 2 best games of the weekend. And you saw some overtime. You saw some drama. You saw guys making plays, making shots. Brandon is in first. He got in right before 4. Tim checks in, says, hey, y'all, run the damn ball time. Tim's all ready for football. Mike Corrigan, he says, what's up? Delightful parting gifts. Justin is here. NASCAR Eric says, what's up? NASCAR Eric made his run to Memphis. Tuck says, what's up? Finally, he is in the top 5. Brennan from the Black Hills says he is back. And we have more comments. Rewind 2001, on to spring football. Mr. Snitley is in. Jeff Snitley, good year for everyone who went chalk with their brackets and took all the higher seeds. Scott checks in, says hello. And also you have Nick checking in, posing a question of the day. I had a patient the other day and asked me where I see myself in 5 years. Where do you guys see Nebraska and college football in the next 5 years? I'll say it like this. Nebraska football in the next 5 years better be and needs to be still in the Big Ten. They need to be in the AAU. Okay.
2 monster boxes that need to be checked.
Let's just get the big old crayon and just check that off like we're playing Keno. And Nebraska needs to be in that top 4 to 5 range. I don't care what the Big Ten looks like. Right? We just talked to start the show about the gift of high expectations. And you need to not just get there once, but you need to reload. It needs to be a consistent thing. And as long as Matt Rule is here and he's practicing the way he's practicing and he's recruiting the way he's recruiting, but more importantly, he's developing with his plan where it allows you to reload high-level talent, and he feels pretty good about his talent level moving forward, then you can be there. You got to clean up, and we'll talk with Jay Moore about this. You got to clean up those things that keep 3 points just outside your reach, and 3 points being turnovers, 3 points being a missed play on special teams, and special teams weren't awful, but some return game, and a quarterback making a play, being able to rely on a run game, and then getting a stop on defense, getting off the field on third down, especially if it's 3rd down and 9. That was a bit problematic. So, yeah, I expect Nebraska basketball to be knocking on that tournament door 3 out of every 5 years. And I think Fred, that's kind of his bar as well. I think that's doable, and I think Nebraska football, year in, year out, as this playoff continues to expand, we're going to be at 14, not far after we're at 12 for the college football landscape. Be in the Big Ten, be in the top echelon, the topper tier from a recruiting and NIL and a development standpoint, and be able to go toe-to-toe, Elijah and Connor, like Nebraska used to, where, all right, Nebraska was in it all the time when it comes to the Big 12 and the Big 8. Different leagues, clearly. You had to beat Colorado and Oklahoma in the Big 8. Had to contend with Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas State and Colorado typically in the Big 12 as you grew your league. Now, what's Michigan's sustainability look like? What's Washington's rebound look like? Does Oregon keep on doing their thing with that SEC blueprint from Lanning? I think they do. What's USC like? That's just some of the newbies that are coming in. Where's Iowa adjust? Are they still 8-4 and on a bad day for you and on a good day for them, they beat you 30-7 because they just suffocate you? What's Minnesota look like? What's Illinois look like? Where's Northwestern go? All these teams that you've not had great sustained success against post-Bo. And as we look into the future, we shake that crystal ball. Nick, thanks for the question. Yeah, Nebraska needs to be right there with the Penn States, the Michigans, and Ohio State. Right now they are loading for bear. They are in it to win it, and it's really not a choice, I don't think, for OHIO. They are just geared up and ready to take things to a new level, despite all of their air quote losses and turnover. So that's what I say. That's where we're at with our starting 5. More of your comments coming up here in the stream. Welcome to do it that way. Can always email. Jeff also checks in. Chris at HailVarsity.com. What do you see? What do you guys see for year 5? Moving into the future of an unknown and unstable world of college football. You better get good, and you better get like your other peers in the league to have a place at the adult table. And right now there's 2 tables. It's a giant Thanksgiving. It's the SEC and it's the Big Ten. I don't know if you get relegated, but who's to say that it doesn't get dicey if you don't start being what you're supposed to be and being Nebraska when they brought you in?
Well, the question to me is what can Nebraska show in year 2 that shows recruits that the trajectory is moving upward? You showed enough in year 1 to show a guy like Dylan Raiola that the trajectory is here. Obviously, you had a great opportunity at quarterback for a guy like that, which made it a little bit unique. Now that you've gotten that first year win, that first true recruiting class win, what can you show in year 2? What can you do with those guys and prove it to your next recruiting class, to the class of 25, to the class of 26, to the class of 27, that you know what? Nebraska is not just a team in the Big Ten, they're a player within the Big Ten, and they are going to be coming for Big Ten titles every single year. That's what you got to show to be able to try to take a chunk out of the teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, the teams that really rule the roost in terms of recruiting. What can you show in year 2 to be able to go grab some of those guys? Because as we know, in the era of conference expansion, recruiting hotbeds, the fertile grounds where teams traditionally go, are going to be changing. The West Coast might be a little more open for business. You look at Texas, it might be a little more open for business, especially with how much rural likes going down there. What can you show those guys in year 2 that proves to them, you know what, Nebraska's in the upward trajectory, and by the time I get there, this is going to be a place that is a player in college football?
Mm-hmm. I think you can kind of look back to see what Fred did on the basketball side. Now, granted, it was in year 4, not year 2, but the fact that you're able to build momentum and then carry that over, piggybacking off of what Elijah just said, you can't just be like, poof, oh my goodness, all of a sudden we're good at football. You need to have something to build off of. And yes, it was a unique situation for Raiola to come in, But at the same time, he knew that he was kind of the missing piece, or a guy like his caliber, at least last season, seemed to be a huge missing piece for that team to be a step away from really big-time success. They probably would have made a bowl game had the quarterback play been better. So the fact that you're able to have a chance at building a better foundation, and I only go to Fred because of the momentum that they built at the end of, I guess, 2 seasons ago now, leading into this past year. So if you're able to build any sense of momentum like that, obviously the fan support is there, the facilities are there, the brand is there, the conference is there, the opponents are there. All you got to do is show your results just a little bit, and I think that's going to take
work.
Yeah, I mean,
it's so easier than a cheat off Timmy.
I know.
And Timmy is way better at math than I am.
Can we get the play sheet from Ann Arbor?
It's the same answer. Oh, he showed a lot of work.
It will be interesting to see what Husker basketball can do this upcoming offseason. I equate making the tournament and losing in the first round to making a bowl game. That's like going 8-4,
sure,
7-5. I'll be curious to see what type of NIL resources they're working with this offseason. You can kind of, it's different obviously with the sport of football because football will always have the NIL resources, but just what can that Husker basketball build look like in this upcoming offseason? What can Fred Hoiberg sell to recruits? Because I think it can be a similar story with football. Once you get things rolling in the right direction, that sell job makes the NIL dollars go a little bit further.
Well, and the thing that Fred's nailed the last 2 years is fit. Guys that fit the locker room, fit how he wants them to play. More of your comments coming up. It's Hail Varsity with you on a Monday, powered by Cornhead Lager.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmidt.
Schmidt's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back to you. It's Monday. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. More of your comments in the stream. Home of the Whopper, the Twitter handle, has got a screenshot of one Elijah Herbel, Herbal Essence, representing the face of all Nebrasketball, how it feels in one shot. They got you staring, and I could see the thought bubble. There were some swear words towards the computer going on there. Is that fair?
I wouldn't call it swear. That's just the look of Elijah Herbel when he's very focused. You can check this out. It's up on my Twitter if you're not knowing what we're talking about here.
At Herbal Essence.
Yes. No free shout-outs, but that's a free shout-out to myself. That was the look of me editing audio, being extremely focused, because we ran up against it a little bit today, and during that first segment, I was pulling double duty, talking and editing audio at the same time.
You were selectively hearing?
That's the look of my face when my brain is at 100% full capacity.
You're doing two things. Well, what if they throw it to me? Yeah, hell of a job, fellas. Back to you, Marv. Pretty good.
Too many buttons to press.
So
too many audio things to do.
Did you set up a time to catch up with your new bestie?
Oh, you're talking Johnny Manziel?
I'm talking Johnny Football.
No.
Johnny Football quote tweeting Elijah Friday after it got to a 20-point spread or around there with Nebraska A&M, because you had Mr. Jacobson giggling. And you posted that up, and it wasn't giggling about A&M. It was giggling about the Trev factor. Well, Johnny took it as that Nebraska was laughing at them Aggies.
Yeah,
well,
of all the people that could have saved that tweet and come back to it a week later, Johnny Manziel, probably the last person I was expecting. Like, thanks for adding insult to injury, Johnny. Like, that game gets out of hand. It sucks. I'm sitting at my house on Friday night.
He's just trolling through social media.
He's just like, I'm going to get this Elijah Herbel guy.
Game. Like, literally in a Nebraska section, too.
Well, let's be honest. It was all in Nebraska section.
I know. But still, I mean, like...
Are you a little less ticked? I mean, we did save you.
Yeah, but... Yeah.
No.
No, you guys definitely did me a favor money and time-wise. So... I guess I'm all right with that.
That's a begrudging. Yeah, I guess I know I screwed up.
Whatever.
Shouldn't light the garage on fire.
That's a begrudging. I still would have gone.
No, I was still going to go, but you a-holes made me work.
Hey, I said it when Duda calls. Here I am. It's fine.
Just waiting for the... Yeah,
I'm gonna make both of you feel way worse about it than I need to.
This is what was gonna happen. This was gonna be the dreaded. Yeah, boss, I can't come in. It's day one of March Madness. I'm under the weather.
Yeah.
I got COVID again. I can't do it.
I'm in the quarantine dorms.
And then there's a shot of Connor by the camera crew, hands cupped like you were doing. What game was that?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. You were just giving it to Wisconsin.
Hey, we won that game too.
Hey,
we were down 19.
Connor was the one-man cheering section when they were down 19. So we could argue Connor Clark was the reason they beat Wisconsin, and we could argue they didn't beat A&M.
Yeah, this is on us.
See?
It's so wrong.
I'm not going to take that fall. I'm going to take the failure to be able to guard off the dribble one-on-one, the failure to rebound because you needed help defense, and then the failure to close out on shots because you were so scared of the dribble drive.
I think it was bad
all
luck.
Those things.
I'm just kidding.
Just a bad draw. I mean, 56% from threes, no picnic. Brian chimes into the stream. Size, length, athleticism still trumps all. Yeah, let's go there for a minute. And you've got some folks entering into the portal. Let's spend here.
I think this is really interesting.
It is. You have Frankie Fiddler and Anna Bellenhauser has tweeted this out, that he's on the Creighton practice list. Is that correct?
He was watching practice.
Not a visit today. There'll be Creighton vying for the services of UNO stud Frankie Fiddler. And Ada from Hurrdat tweeting that out. Eli Rice is in the portal. Lloyd in the portal. And that's kind of a bummer because of what Eli showed before his injury. And, you expect some core guys to come back. Of course, Rice and Rink and Juan returning for Nebraska. And you like where Jamarcus has been, his role. Can that up? What does Wilcher do? But, fellas, they need to go find a point guard. Or they need to go find a big five because Rink's kind of a 4 at a stretch at that. He's been asked to bang down low, and some games were better than others, and it was just a tough matchup a lot of times. Alec he got so much better, and his arrow kept going up as the season went on. And, he really improved offensively as well. So you're going to miss Alec, and Tominaga could take over at any moment. That's a loss. But there are options out there. People are wondering. I don't know how many emails or texts or people you bumped into over the weekend. But the question is out there about Chucky. Is Chucky coming back to Nebraska? And we don't know. It sounds like we talked to our dear buddy, the Iron Horse, Sharpie on Saturday, weekend edition, and that might have been in play or was going to be in play a year ago with Chucky to Nebraska. Didn't happen. Does it happen now?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Well, I had heard smoke on, this would have been Saturday night, and it hasn't come to fruition. Mm-hmm. It probably never will. It probably was just smoke about Wisconsin being unhappy with guard.
I don't get that. I really don't. Because I understand he hasn't had the tournament success that you want Greg Gard to have, but he makes the tournament damn near every single season. People were calling for his head last year in Madison.
But it isn't Bo Ryan.
I don't care if it's Bo Ryan or not. Bo
Ryan's making the Sweet 16 damn near every year.
I think that's fine. But look, so what happens if you pull a Nebraska and 9 wins isn't enough? Right?
Well, they did it with their football coach 2 years ago.
I get it.
What's stopping them from doing it with basketball?
Well, who can you go get out there that's going to guarantee more success than you have? They'll get to a Sweet 16 sooner or later.
I think it's justified if they missed this year because February was a disaster. Okay, we can all admit that they were 3-8, not good. Ever since they played at PBA, not good. They found their swagger back in the Big Ten tournament. Made the final. We're a couple plays away from winning it. Obviously didn't play well against JMU, but I just don't understand, when you have that much consistency in college athletics, when it's so hard to find said consistency, and I get it, it's Wisconsin. It's still a very major basketball program. Wisconsin has history, especially in this century, the last 3 decades, really. But when you're able to find that consistency, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I have a hard time seeing people complain about that. Again, people wanted him gone last year. They were fed up with Greg Gard.
Yeah, that was before they lost to James Madison.
Yeah, and I did not
off in the back half of the season.
I did not understand that. when you saw how good they were at their peak, you know how good they can be. I know it wasn't sustained, but I just, as a Wisconsin fan, I don't think that's grounds for being like, hey, this guy needs to go.
Well, we'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see.
And I don't think Chucky will leave there.
I think the angle of Chucky wanting to play with Fiddler is real.
So do I.
Those guys played together at Bellevue.
But you better get him to Nebraska.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what you're looking at. We just got some breaking news roughly 10 minutes ago. Eli Rice into the transfer portal for Nebraska basketball. Why?
Aaron Eulis still exists, guys.
Because Fiddler is going to be here and be the new Stretch.
Oh, that would be great.
Eli Rice showed enough this year that I think he was one for the future.
Same. I love his size. He didn't blink in some moments. He came in and shot well.
Should you only be losing 2 seniors this year, and Josiah Alec and Tominaga, and the other guys are coming back, makes sense that you might need to clear some space for portal guys, regardless if it's Fiddler or not.
You don't clear out Eli, though.
They have 3 scholarships open right now after the Eli Rice news.
Yes.
So Fiddler, William Kyle, just get the T-Bird trio in.
Wouldn't that be something?
And you land Chuckster.
Well, you compare it to Creighton. Creighton's losing 3 guys. At least 3 guys were honored on senior day with Farabello, Kalkbrenner, and Shireman. And you look at where a Frankie Fiddler would fit in there. If you remember, they still have Isaac Trout waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
Who knows what he can be, whether or not he's going to live up to that 5-star billing or not. Didn't get all that much playing time this season, but you'd expect he'd be the next guy kind of in line after Shireman. Mm-hmm. What kind of playing time is available there? You compare it to Nebraska. Nebraska doesn't really have a guy that stands 6'7" and shoots like Fiddler does. It's interesting.
It is.
It's interesting. If Fiddler wants to stay close to home, as we talked with Gary Sharp on Saturday, and highly recommend, if you don't check out the Saturday morning show in podcast form or streaming online, highly recommend that you do. Gary said Fiddler wants to stay close to home. I think there's a fit that makes a lot more sense with Nebraska than it does with Creighton, despite the fact that Fiddler's checking out Creighton practice.
Well, here's the rebuttal to that. Now, this is obviously a hypothetical situation right now, but if he does want to play with Chucky, and Chucky doesn't want to leave Wisconsin,
does he go to Wisconsin?
Well, there's a decent chance A.J. Storr takes off. I think he could fill his role up in Madison quite well because he's bigger. He's about the same size. He's not as athletic, but he's a natural scorer.
Can Nebraska go get Storr?
No. Storr is either going NBA or Blue Blood.
Okay.
So.
No, Storr's awesome.
He's great. He's fantastic.
Duke written all over him.
Yeah, he's a freak.
Cool like that.
Score the basketball like crazy. But in a hypothetical situation, if he does take off, I think that could be a spot that Frankie Fiddler could also fill if he wants to play with Chucky, and Chucky doesn't want to take off for Madison.
Well, let me ask this, and I hate to go here, but would he want to be Nebraska, or would he entertain something from Creighton? And I know Creighton's pretty loaded with ball handlers, but Chucky also wants to win a tournament game. Not that Nebraska can't. Maybe he wants to be somebody that helps Nebraska get there, right? But I don't know. If Fiddler likes Creighton and he wants to play, they want to play together again, does Creighton swoop in and grab former in-state Nebraska high school studs and make them their home again over Nebraska?
That's why I'm talking about fit here with what type of opportunity awaits you at each school. On one, it's potential Sweet 16. They're losing some talent this year. But the other one, it's more playing time with a roster that is still semi-loaded.
Go win round one.
There's one thing I want to know. Anonymous chimes in and says 4 open with Ramel Lloyd gone. No, it is 3 because you're bringing in Frager from Southwest.
Yes.
It is 3 open scholarships as it stands right now following the news with Ramel Lloyd and with Eli Rice.
Okay, there's your hoops update as the chess pieces move.
We do have also some guys that potentially have another year of eligibility should they want it. Guys like C.J. Wilcher, it's decision time for them. We'll probably have decisions from them within the next week, I'd assume.
Yeah, I would think so. And Wilcher's a guy that, can he find that midseason form? Great asset as a sixth man. Spring football thoughts as we get rolling here on a Monday with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence, at C_Clark_27. So, nice tweet out by Husker football as they show a rolling to his right quarterback named Hoiberg finding a tight end over the middle. So as the camera focuses on the backdrop of North Stadium, whereas you drive in and drive by, it highlights all the national championships. So that was something cool to see on social media. Fellas, it is spring football, the gift of high expectations. And we talked about that 5-year window thanks to a question in the stream a little bit earlier from Nick. And let's talk here and now. Justin chimes in. Banks will be the MVP of the offense this season. Mark it down. Put it in the book. Justin, I think Banks is a guy you want in with that athleticism and talent for sure. But it's going to make that wideout room that's super young, super talented, a grown-up room. So, fellas, what is expectations for this spring and beyond? And we know that front and center is going to be quarterback. We know that Nebraska football is going to keep trying to push and develop some of those younger guys. We also know that there are guys that need to solidify their spots despite being in the program for a lot of years. Just because you've been around a while doesn't mean you're guaranteed to keep your job. They're going to play the best player. And when I think of Nebraska football, there's a good and proper balance here of this mindset of embracing the suck and making everything super and uber competitive, but also getting the fundamentals and the realities down. That is taking care of the football. That's developing your quarterback play. That's finding a couple of guys that you really drill, and keep drilling. And then let's see what this offense can be. Let's see what the quarterback can be with a dedicated quarterback coach. And let's see where, as things move forward, that second level. We feel pretty good as we've looked at the Nebraska football team year one, not a year two, what they are in the front level defensively, and we feel pretty good about the secondary. You just have some question marks about linebacker because some guys have graduated. So, what type of step forward is this second year going to be under Rule? What type of step forward is this second spring under Rule going to be? And it's going to be about, to me, it's going to be about the offense. I mean, you're going to see the defense try and become greater and jump, which you'd expect from Tony White coming back. But you're going to really see the offense, I think, take off and not be scoring explosion or 40 a game. But I think this will be that step forward in year two to be consistent. It's going to be pro style where you're going to throw the football, but there's always going to be the emphasis and the lean on the run. But you're going to be able to do both things presumably well. That's your goal for fall 2024. What work do you get done? And what decisions can you make about your quarterback spot here as spring gets done? So it's an important time, clearly and obviously, with this young phenom in Raiola. See what you got in Kalen, and where's the progress that a guy like Hoiberg can make. I mean, that's to me, stay healthy, stay healthy, stay healthy. Underline that 3 times, and then move on to what type of quarterback grasp does your young pups get of your offense that you're putting in.
I don't want to skate past. Like, there's so much we've spent this year, or this offseason, I should say, talking about the quarterback position. And we talked a lot about the quarterback position last year. But if you remember, at this time last year, one of the things I said that I stuck by throughout most of the year was that the football team last year could be as good as the offensive line could take them, if that makes sense. The offensive line was the group that had to take them far. I'm still in a similar boat this year. I'm going to change it up just slightly to be original. The running game this year will determine how far this Husker football team can go. And that's really what I'm looking for in the spring, with all the attention on Raiola and the pieces you brought in, the transfer portal guys at wide receiver, the guys returning on defense. Despite all of that, I still think the group that determines how far this team goes is the running game. If you have a freshman quarterback starting, the running game is a freshman quarterback's best friend. It's a hell of a lot easier for a freshman quarterback to make an on-time, accurate throw on 3rd and 3 than it is on 3rd and 11. What gets you to 3rd and 3? Your rushing attack.
5 yards.
What makes it
4 yards.
A hell of a lot easier for your defense to go out and make a stop? Well, if they've only been on the field for 3 drives, now it's the 3rd quarter. Makes it a hell of a lot easier for them to go out and make a stop whenever they need one, as opposed to being out there for 8 drives in the first half because guess what? You couldn't pick up anything on the ground, so you had to throw the ball and you couldn't take any time off the clock. To me, it is still a case of the offensive line. I'll add Dowdell into the running game, the tight ends. How well can Nebraska run the football next season? That, to me, determines how good they're going to be. Well, you know what you have in the defense. You know what's going to be a freshman quarterback. You know your freshman quarterback is going to make some freshman mistakes despite all the talent. I think you can expect a slight upgrade there. But to me, it's the offensive line and the running game. What can they do to take the pressure off of everybody else?
Love it. I love it. And you've got older wideouts that you brought in the portal. You've got a tight end that's been a part of your program for 3 years. It is lining up to not ask your freshman to go do it and win it by himself. What did we see in the running game last year? You saw some teams crack in the 4th quarter. We think of that Purdue game, right, when you got Emmett Johnson busting out. That was kind of vintage Nebraska. You need to see more of it. I love the goal still of 75. Maybe that goal jumps to 85. I don't know what the 4th quarter rushing goal is, but you need to be able to line up under center and run the ball with your back and not have to audible to quarterback run game, because that's what was most successful for Nebraska. I'm not saying that's a thing of the past, but it's not going to be a primary option like it was last year. I don't know that you'll see much option unless you put Hoiberg in a special goal line package. So your run game was tops in the Big Ten when it comes to yards per carry. That's nice. Your rushing average was 200. Guys, did you feel like when Nebraska had to, they could line up and run it last year?
No.
Against Wisconsin, against Iowa, against Minnesota. I mean, just think, and I know there's no divisions now, but the beef up front in your own division, you had quarterback run games that were run gains that were massive. You think of the Illinois win, right?
Well, the hallmark of a rushing attack that you trust that's good is on 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4, you feel good about handing the ball off. Yeah. Is it 100% success rate? No, it never will be. But do you feel good about handing the ball 50. Off on 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4? Last year, the answer was unequivocally no. You didn't feel good about Nebraska's
chances. And you didn't
get
it in some of those short yardage situations where you tried to.
Yep.
And when it wasn't your quarterback keeping on an option, about 3 games into it, your teams were good at figuring that out. Northwestern and then Purdue really laid some wood to Hoiberg. And then you go into that Michigan State game. What was your running game like? Wasn't as good as it needed to be. You go into the Wisconsin game, aside from Chuba with his quarterback run game, wasn't as good as it needs to be. So that is a monster emphasis here. We'll wind down this first hour. Mr. Blackshirt's on the way. Charlie McBride, Jay Moore, Blackshirt Hour on the way after 5.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Mr. Blackshirt's 10 minutes away. His thoughts on spring ball as it is underway with Nebraska football. Plenty of thoughts on Husker basketball. Little surprised at how things went down for the Big Red against A&M, but the consensus in the stream, length, athleticism, just bigger, stronger, faster for A&M, and pretty tough. So
you saw that yesterday.
Yeah, and you saw him scare the hell out of Houston. Brandon checks in. Chris, my run game would be 1st and goal at the half-yard line, and knowing in 3 snaps it was 7.
That's 6.5.
6.5. Thank you. That's what about every Nebraska fan wants, man, is the ability to line up and just slam it in. Amanda says, "What's up?" She is in. You have Brian saying Dowdell's going to be the MVP if healthy. Dylan and Fedoni Couple of options. Moonbot checks in the stream as well. So, yeah, there's Scott. Good luck and God bless, but that is the goal. Let's see less turnovers. How about less turnovers and more takeaways? Right? That sounds awesome. Justin has a fair question. Does Deion Sanders get a discount if he goes to the Good Feet store?
Wow. Primetime catching strays on Monday.
That's horrible.
I have no comments on that.
No, that is awful.
Jeez. I know you people don't like Colorado. But...
you have no idea.
Oh, just wait till that post-game presser after Nebraska-Colorado where Deion's talking about, yeah, this guy Justin in a live stream back in this spring. Extra motivation.
I keep receipts.
Yeah, right.
It became personal.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. That's
Justin, that one's going to be on you if Nebraska drops that game.
Can't happen. That'd be 4 straight wins by those guys. No good. Montana Husker fans checking in. Good to see Montana Husker fan. So this was proposed also in the stream with your new bestie.
Johnny
Football. Johnny Football and Elijah Herbel. Octagon.
Oh.
Would you?
Let me look how tall he is first.
He's 5'9".
I don't think it matters, does it?
Maybe 5'11".
He's listed at 6 foot, but I don't believe that.
Yeah, he's 5'11". We'll meet somewhere in the 5'10", 5'11".
The question is how much brain damage has Johnny Manziel incurred upon himself through his years of partying? Because the more, the less chance I can knock him out. You know, once there's not much brain activity going on.
But sometimes that reason
he'll just do whatever he wants then without fearing any consequence.
Right. He may not care and just go for
break the rules,
the tap out.
If the price is right, I'll step into the octagon with Johnny. If it's like in somebody's basement,
That'd be a hell of a story.
You need proof that there is funding. You need check in hand, and then you go.
All right, somebody drop the GoFundMe link in the stream right now. We need to make this happen.
Yeah, I think it'd be all right.
I think I could get him.
Yeah, this isn't Tyson versus Paulie. I mean, this. I don't know. Johnny might have some pent up frustration and anger. I think you got to bet on Harrison Beck.
Yeah, Anonymous chimes in and says Johnny Manziel versus Harrison Beck is what we've been waiting to see.
Make sure you buckle up. A message from our friends at the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives and prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. Hour 2 coming up with Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride.
This is Christian Peter. I'm sorry, but the stories I have about Charlie are not appropriate for the public.
The right case of the Mondays. It's Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, on Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. We'll get this Blackshirt hour going. Charlie McBride, Jay Moore, going to be with us as we'll check in with Mr. Blackshirt here in a moment. It is that time of year. It is day 1 of spring football. We spent a little bit of time in hour 1 talking Nebraska basketball. Was it a surprise? Maybe not that A&M won, but was it a surprise that it was that disjointed? The matchup wasn't good, and I think it's fair to say A&M needed about 3 more minutes last night to get by Houston. It didn't happen, but they forced overtime, and it was pretty tough. Houston survived, advanced, and A&M much better than a 9 seed. Didn't play up to that preseason prostration level. They were on an absolute heater. Reminder to get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play is how you can find the show. Also watch us live here on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. We welcome in Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. Coach, thanks for taking time. It's day 1 of spring football. I'm sure you've got your eye black on and you're fired up. How are you?
Oh, I'll tell you what, that makes me feel better. That they're starting, and then after such a layoff, you don't get to be around the winter program at all, and it's just the kids have more fun during that. They say they don't, but they really do.
Well, chemistry and camaraderie and teaching are all important assets, and you look at the fact that there's going to be some young guys that need to take a jump, Coach, and there's some older guys that are going to need to take that jump. And as you put so many years in down at the stadium, what's the key to getting those guys, the young and the old, to make and take that jump for a really good year too?
Well, right now that's the biggest problem they have. I mean, it wasn't something we really had when we were there, because our freshmen and some guys that could come early are there now, and we usually didn't get any of them until the first part of fall camp. And in those times, we had them we had a special practice for them to start them teaching individually. Now you're down to 15 times, and you got some guys there, so you have some guys that know the system and some that don't. And that's what makes it hard. You have to go back. It's like turning the page back and reading the page before, because I forgot what's on the first, page, and you just get all messed up. And as a coach, I think it's really a hard thing. So I feel bad for the coaches sometimes, unless they have an extra practice, set aside, or a time set aside to work with those guys. And and I think they still have a time allotment and all these other things that are crazy. And right now it's a good time to forget that stuff and just go do what you feel like. That's what I think.
Charlie McBride's with us at Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, we were talking about some areas of improvement. We no doubt look at the turnovers, forcing turnovers, and taking care of the football on offense. We look at the return game. But how did you feel about Nebraska's rushing attack last year? It's pretty quarterback heavy. I don't think that'll be the case this year. It shouldn't be. Did you think the O-line and the run game was adequate, or do you think they can be better this year?
Well, I think it'll be better this year. I think they're in a better frame of mind. I think they see what they can do last year, and in the last 4 games that they didn't, they lost. I think that's a big factor in them making a big improvement. The guys that are real competitors are going to show up, and they're going to do everything they can to help that team. And as you know, they got a couple of good players coming back and things like that. So that gives you some indication of their what they think about the program, and that's really important. And I just think that with some of these new young kids, that there's probably 1 or 2 or 3 of them that are going to probably raise up and be able to do something. And you never know. That's the hard part. That you flat never really realize what the heck you got. And I've had kids that called up and said, "Coach, can I walk on?" or something like that. And wait, I'd have to check, and then I'd say, "Yeah, you can," and they all of a sudden end up in 2 years become starters. So there's so many different variables, with these guys that, and you have to see through a lot of it. You have to say that, if a guy's not playing, and he can, and he will, but those that stay will play. That goes way back to what Devaney had written on the wall in the locker room, and that's the truth. I mean, you may not come in till the last year, but then all of a sudden you may be inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame before it's over. So that's how it happens, because some guys are late bloomers, and it's tough when you go around, especially in the state. You have some fun with some guys that have a chance to get bigger, to get stronger, and you could see that they got the mental attitude to do it.
It's Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Charlie, talk about some of those guys who are late bloomers. We saw some of them last spring. Some of these guys that really flashed, you didn't necessarily expect them to. You think of John Bullock, you think of Phelan Sanford, guys that ended up contributing as the year went on, and guys that, I don't want to say came out of obscurity, but you didn't expect the role that they ended up playing by the end of spring. I want to get your thoughts. Just how big a jump can somebody make between the end of November, the end of the season, to the start of spring practice? Do you have any guys that stand out in your memory of being like, whoa, you showed up one spring and they just made a massive jump?
Well, there's so many of them, that especially the walk-on people. And when I look back at some of them, I've had a couple of players that I said, well, I'll take them, and they turned in to be starters for us when they were turned down by the position coaches. And the reason is they didn't play the position. They didn't play their position that the coaches were looking at a lot of times. And they're looking at. I look at a kid as just his athletic ability and how he moves and his balance and speed and things like that. Where a lot of times they look at the product as it is right there. And I think you have to look ahead a little bit and then find out some things from the coach I think are important. And even if you get back there and you get a chance to talk to some of the players, I think that's what, for example, that's what got Jared Talmadge's scholarship. 2 sophomores standing in the hallway and telling me he's the toughest and the best guy. He helps us in the weight room. He does this and that, and he's really a good player. It makes you think a little harder on what to take. So there's so many things you got to, I could name a million of them. I mean, it's Mike Murray write me a letter and saying, Coach, I didn't even make all Catholic, and I played linebacker and guard. Well, he started for 2 years at nose tackle for us and probably was the smallest guy, and I think he ended up with a second-team all Big 12 player. Mm-hmm. And he had 2 years as a starter, and with Neil Smith and Tim Rother and some of those guys, it's amazing how somebody can come around and just do that, and you'll find that's going to happen.
Charlie McBride is with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And Charlie, something that Matt Rule said in his spring ball presser about a week ago at this point was the 3-3-5, how it worked out last year and what teams will do to exploit it this year. Do you expect that unit to regress really at all, or how can they avoid, now that everybody else in the Big Ten has that much more knowledge on what Tony White's system is going to look like?
Well, I think one of the things, I think that's true, and I've always said, you'll see an NFL team with a new coach and everything, and they'll just tear up the joint, and these guys have a chance to study what they do, and it makes a big difference and find out where the weakness in the defense. There's always a weakness in a defense, I'll promise you that. But you have to be able to run the right play at the right time too, so it works both ways. But I think that the defense has got the ability to disguise, to do some things that you can kind of know the defense better, but a lot of times coaches will make adjustments to things over the year and see some things that didn't work so hot for them and change, and the things that didn't work so hot, the other people are looking at it saying, well, they weren't able to stop this play or that play, and and so we need to get something ready for them or in our offense that we can attack them with. So it works both ways. I mean, it's hard to figure out what. One of the things we did a lot of, it was we fooled our linebackers up in the line of scrimmage a lot, and that there's not a way to get ready for that stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, we knew that everybody knew what we did. We just played it better than they could block it.
Charlie McBride's with us, a Monday with Charlie, talking spring football, day one, here on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, do you think we'll be able to get some answers about the quarterback spot here by the end of spring, or do you think there'll still be some question marks. It's a tough question, but I'm interested in your thoughts because you got young and you got old.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It sounds like it's harder, but it's easier probably for them to do it now that they have a new quarterback coach and the guys with some experience, and it actually, I think that you'll see a big improvement in the quarterback situation. Freshmen can start. I mean, I don't, but it does take. It's the mental part of the game that really is the hard part. And I don't know if you know much about our offense when we were there, but we had I don't know, I couldn't tell you how many different plays we had. And that was a monumental deal mentally. And I think a lot of times when you have really integrate the throwing game, you kind of eliminate a lot of the running part because you have to have time to practice the stuff. Mm-hmm. And we were a running football team, so most of our stuff came off the play action and that kind of thing. And when you have that, your quarterbacks a lot of times are hitting the corners and just reading half of the field. It's a little easier to read where you're dropping back and you're reading the whole field, or you at least know where number 1, 2, and 3 are. Sometimes 4 is coming out of the backfield, and you got. At the last minute, you're going to have to go to it and get used to being able to do that. And you can't fool around and hold the ball. You'll hear a lot of times quarterbacks hold the ball too much. Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably because they're not as good at readers as maybe somebody else is. So I think that the biggest thing, I think, is the new quarterback coach. I really think that he's able to zero in on them and not have to worry about other people, and that's really hard to do. I mean, to be the coordinator, you coach 2 guys, backs and quarterbacks and all that stuff. That's pretty tough duty, and so I think that it's going to be a lot better. I think that quarterbacks will be fundamentally better football players.
Coach, we'll say goodbye on this. How's your NCAA bracket, or did you throw it in the fire already?
Well, I live in Michigan, and when Nebraska got beat, I went right to the Michigan State. And because the last time I was up there, I said one of the coaches came in the office that said, "Here, take this home and you can wear it when you sleep at night." It was a hat, a Michigan State hat. So I put the hat on and they lost.
Was that on purpose?
I don't know. I wanted them to win because they're close by. They're not far from here. And, but I mean, it's basketball and me the game changes so fast that, whoever's hot at the end of the game wins. Somebody told me don't turn it on until about 5 minutes left. You'll see who wins the game.
It got pretty intense, a tough one for Nebraska, but a lot of Big Red fans showed up down in Memphis.
But it is interesting how Charlie wore his Husker hat on Friday night, Nebraska loses. He wears his Sparty hat on Saturday, Michigan State loses.
At least his was a gift. My family owns Michigan State stuff.
Well, Coach Hoiberg, he got the Coach of the Year, and I think that really is an honor for the whole for the whole basketball team. I mean, that goes, and his assistants, it goes to the whole team on that, and I think that's great.
Coach, we'll say hello next Monday as we'll gear up for more spring football. How's that sound?
That'll be good.
All right.
Football. I know they're going to start pro football now, somebody said. So I guess that's going to start. Year-round stuff now.
Coach, you take care. Thanks again.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me. Bye now.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Hour commences. It's Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer at JMoore44. Co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay Bird, it's spring football time as March has been dominated by basketball, but we shift gears into the gridiron. How you doing?
I'm well. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think, and it's been nice having basketball to talk about, have it be relevant and not have to be focused on spring football. But like we used to say when you played, it's the necessary evil of spring ball, the suck.
Well, let's get into some of that suck and how you always had a really mature approach, and you've been very candid with your career, just how you had that moment, sophomore to junior year, you were challenged by cause, and you were told to turn it up, and you absolutely did. When it comes to getting through the suck of winter conditioning and even spring for some of the older guys, what does it take to do what Matt Rule's talking about, and that's enjoy doing things you hate?
Yeah, it's exactly right, and it's recognizing that it's hard, recognizing that it's not fun, but it's like it's perfect. The necessary evils to be great. Like, you have to do things that you don't like to do to get where you want to go. And there's always a rule to get where you haven't been. You have to do things you haven't done before. So that's what this team's going through, and they haven't been successful, and they haven't won enough football games to be bowl eligible. They haven't won enough football games to, be in the talk of the Big Ten, winning the Big Ten. So these things they've done, for the last year since Rule's staff got here from last spring ball to now, it's been all encompassing. It's been everything. It's been on the field, off the field, big picture, small picture stuff. So it's just identifying what you're not good at, and I think that's healthy, and that's what all teams you always have to identify what you're not good at, attack that, but you also have to recognize what you are good at too, to keep working on that. There are some good things that this team has done last fall, but now it's a time for young guys to step up, get some more reps that you're not able to get during during a bowl practice, and it's time for them to grow up and mature and understand what's being taught, what's been taught in the film and on on the whiteboards through the winter and through all the meetings that they had with position coaches. It's time to apply that. It's also now it's time for the older guys is to still sharpen your keep your tools in your tool belt sharp. I don't think guys like Ty Robinson and Nash Hutchmacher and Isaac Gifford and guys who've been playing a lot of football, they don't need a ton of reps this time. They're going to get some. You need to stay sharp. You need to show younger guys how to do it. But this is time for guys who haven't played a ton of football. Young guys who have came in at semester that signed early. It's time for them to come in and get acquainted and step up and see what they can do and improve themselves. It's time to prove themselves. They put themselves in position to do it again in fall camp.
Jay, if you look at and drill down and you had a short list, what is Nebraska not good at, in your opinion? What's kept them? Yeah. What's kept them 3 shy?
Yeah, winning close games. That's what it comes down to. I think winning close games, but also if it's 1A, 1B, you could say winning close games and turnovers. That's probably 1A, 1B, and you could say what causes. Maybe the turnovers is half the battle with losing close games. Yeah, probably so. The Maryland game, for instance, they turned the ball over at the goal line, and they could easily have taken the lead right at that instance. You just go down, you can just go down the line of all the turnover issues we've had. You clean that up a little bit, and you somehow get yourself to back into plus territory. You'll see a huge leap for this team. I'm not even plus. Just get close to even somehow, some way. You'll see a huge jump with this team in wins and losses. So I think turnovers are obviously a huge factor, but just learning how to win those close games and understanding situational football. And that is something you can probably focus on a little more now that you're in year 2. You can kind of, identify those fine details, and that's how you kind of get over that hump of winning those close games. Understanding where you need to be, 2-minute situation, 4-minute situation, end of half, start of third quarter, end of game situations. So there's a lot that goes into it. And that's, if you want to probably give you a third, I think the return game.
Okay.
I think the return game vastly needs to improve. I think with the way the game is going in football, it is harder, and especially in college, it's harder and harder to return kicks. And it's hard to return kickoffs because they move them up, and these kickers have stronger legs. Touchbacks are becoming more and more prevalent. But the way you can spread people out and punt and get guys down the field, it's becoming, the rugby style look has been tougher to return against. But I think a greater effort by Coach Foley and staff needs to be addressed, because we are leaving behind points, but also the hidden yardage game has been huge. And this, I don't know, people might not understand how big a deal. I mean, starting field position is a huge implement to how success can be had on offense and momentum. So I think you get those, those three things. If you want turnovers, return game, I think will obviously help you win those close football games that we lost in the second half of the year in 2023. So I think those kind of three things, two that lead into that last one, are probably my main things that they needed to address here starting today.
It's Jay Moore with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, specifically here on the return game, do you think that's more about finding a dude, or is that about a team effort? Where do you think Nebraska improves? How do they improve in that regard?
Yeah, it's both. You got to have a dude back there. You do. You can't block everyone. I think the best kick returners, whether it's in kickoff or punt, but you have to make a guy miss. You can't get all 10 guys essentially blocked. You have to make a guy miss. And I just think of our elite guys we've had in the past, whether it's, Bobby Newcomb, DeJuan Gross, DeMornay Pearsonell. Those guys had a great ability to, catch the ball. That's the most important thing, but then make that first guy miss, right? And that's, you got to be able to do that. But it also becomes to a team aspect as well, because being on a punt return, being on a kick return, it's not a fun. I mean, some guys can have fun and enjoy it. It's an opportunity to play, but it's not a sexy job, right? Not everyone's watching the kick returner. That's the fun job to have, but no one's looking at the guy on the front line of the kickoff return that's dropping back and is trying to block, the number 4 or 5 in the kick return. That's usually their best players. The guys that are lined up towards the middle, towards the kicker, that's usually where your dogs are at, running on the field. So you got to, you have to embrace that suck in that necessary evil, taking that responsibility on and winning that rep and getting him blocked. So you have to take pride in that, and you have to find guys that want to do it. Not everyone wants to do it. So it's a nice mix of everyone. Yes, you have to get the block. You have to get the blocking right. There's a timing aspect that is very critical too in the return game. It's just like an offensive play. If the timings, you get guys blocked up with the timings off, it's not going to be a great return. So it has to all kind of work together, and it's tough. It's a whirlwind of a play. It's a crazy play in those return games. So everybody's involved, but I think if you get a dude back there, he can make a big difference with making some guys miss and then get north and south, plant that foot in the ground and get upfield and then turn on the jets.
Jay, a theme we've had here today has been embracing the suck. I want you to take us back 20 plus years ago. What moments from your football career, drills, as you talked about being the one of the middle guys on a punt, like what moments sucked the most, A, and then B, as a follow-up to that, are there any moments that sucked at the time but now you look back upon and say, maybe that wasn't so bad, it was kind of fun?
I would go back and do it all over again. I totally would. I loved, it's a grind at times, but that's what made it great. You're going through the grind with guys who I love to death now, and I call them great friends, and saw a handful of them this weekend and get to hang out and have beers, so you just kind of reminisce a little bit. So geez Louise, I just think of like my first spring ball being there. After the 2002 season, that had been my first one. That after we had made some staff changes, Bo was there, but then I looked at that very next spring ball, and all of a sudden Callahan was there, and it was all of a sudden that was completely changed. But I just looked to that my third spring ball going into my junior year, we made a radical change to our defense, and I can get nerdy here in X's and O's for you guys, but we were an over defense. We were a 4-3 over front. That meant the bubble of the defensive line was away from the strength of the defense. Essentially, that's the easiest way I can kind of explain it. But then we switched from an over 4-3 to an under 4-3 defense. So now that the bubble now went towards the strength of the offense. All right. So essentially there was no 3 technique to the strength of the offense, and the over the 3 technique goes to the strength of the offense, and the under the 3 technique goes away. And we just catered toward to our strengths. We had Adam Carricker, who we moved him to that base side end because he was so physically gifted and so strong at the point of attack that he could handle more double teams and play heavier on a 5 technique. We have Oladaganduro, who was a really athletic, good 0 or a shade of 1 technique. You had Barry Cryer, who was a 3 technique, a really good player. And then myself, who I wasn't as big as was Adam, but I was able to – they wanted me to drop more in coverage. So then I was kind of the opposite end, playing over tight ends, away from the call, covering running backs at times. So – I think and then we had Stu Bradley as well, who was able to play the same and played on the edge of the line right next to Adam. So they just identified what we could do. Then we attacked it that spring. We made a drastic change to our defense. We got way more physical. We're talking Oklahoma drills every single day. I mean, it was a drastic change, and we got better. There was no way around it. We got dramatically better. Everyone got stronger. Everyone got better technique-wise. Everyone just got tougher. And it showed next year. Obviously, we'd like to win more football games, but I think our defense made dramatic leaps, led the country in sacks, and I got dramatically better as well. From my sophomore year to my junior year, I'm not even close, not even comparable to where I was just a year before. And that's because they put me in a position to play within my strengths, but they made me tougher. And they made me stronger, and I got mentally tougher, and that's always going to make you better on the football field.
Jay Moore's with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, Hail Varsity Radio at JMoore44, where you find him on Twitter, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Thanks for sharing some of that suck and where you guys were able to make some strides, and you guys were really, I think, about teeing off on quarterbacks like you did your junior and senior year. Pretty impressive, front 7 to go harass a lot of pretty big-time quarterbacks in the Big 12 at the time, and you guys went and played for a championship. I bring the championship part up because Matt Rule laid out in his presser, I'm giving this team and these guys the gift of high expectations. Mm-hmm. So, as we talk here, day 1 of spring ball, is a top 4 finish in the Big Ten too high expectations?
Well, I don't think so. I think that's a very.
Is it attainable?
It's attainable, and it's not unrealistic. I think we all know that Ohio State is going to be the favorite. Mm-hmm. So okay, then, and I think it's kind of Ohio State, and then there's probably a few other teams. So you look at Michigan, who just won the national championship. Obviously, lost some players, lost coaches. Harbaugh's gone to the Chargers. So there's something else going on there. Lose their quarterback. I mean, McCarthy is going to be a first-round draft pick. So you got to think where are they at in the whole scheme of things. Yes, they'll have talent, and I think they're going to be in the top 4. Then you got to look to Penn State, and I think they have some great talent. I can't remember did they play in a New Year's Six game this past year? I can't remember.
They were Fiesta Bowl, right?
That's why I want to say Fiesta, but I knew they were right there, right? A really good football team. And then you got to look at, okay, who's coming over?
Probably Oregon, right?
Or you got Oregon, right? Washington, whole different scenario now with Fish stepping in, with DeBoer going to Alabama. USC,
Iowa, Wisconsin, the old West favorites. I mean, it's
you kind of lump everyone else after there, after those top four, and then it's kind of like, UCLA is going to struggle, I think. USC just don't know, but yeah, Iowa, Wisconsin, us. I don't see what kind of season Illinois has potential in there. I don't know, but I think it's doable, and I think this schedule, how it starts off, is doable, and I say that because it's a schedule that you can really get confidence and get hot. And the schedule that's coming up in end of August and beginning of September, it leans towards building some confidence. And if they can get it going, I mean, they can be right in the running to, pressing within those top four teams. But definitely attainable. I don't think it's. I wasn't taken back or like, oh, there's no way. We kind of discussed and thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with those expectations.
Lines of scrimmage, guys, got to make you feel pretty good from an experience and a talent standpoint on offense and defense, right? It comes down to turnovers. It comes down to
3 more points.
3 more points, as chasing three's the theme. And it comes down, dare I say it, quarterback play, because all eyes are going to be on Raiola and Kalen and what type of jumps Hoiberg can make, but we all think it's going to be Raiola that wins out in the end, as we don't go out on much of a ledge to say, well, it's Raiola's job to lose because of the skill set and the talent that's coming in.
Yeah, it's things are coming together quite nicely. And it's the nice thing is, with the beauty of NIL, you're able to keep some guys around that might not have, that easily could have left. And I'm talking Ty Robinson, Hutchmacher, Isaac Gifford, right? And obviously 2 of those guys are key guys in the defensive line. Offensive line, that you're able to keep your center still there, and that's a huge get to keep him around. The guy that's making the calls, the guy that has obviously some nastiness to bring to that room. You have some guys that have played a ton of snaps on that side of the football, plus some young guys that got to play a lot last year, some injuries, like Justin Jenkins, and this some guys that just had to step in and played at a very high level. So that's great, but also the competition that's involved too, because I think there's some young guys that are coming in. They're going to want to play, and they're going to want to compete, and that raises up everyone's level. You got to be good, and last thing you want to do is lose your job to a younger player. So I like the aspect. I like where the lines of scrimmage, those positions are. Like you said, right? Hold it, man. It's his job to lose. I think the pressure is not going to be too big for him. I think he's going to appreciate the pressure. And like we already said before, it's been said by coaches, pressure is a privilege, right? And I'm sure he's going to embrace that. And get the line play going. You get some decent QB play going. Get the run game going. I think Fedoni could have an awesome season. I think they need to utilize the heck. He could be a matchup nightmare for people offensively. If last year, get the cobwebs off. Finally get some confidence in your knees that you've had issues with. I'm just excited. The Banks from Wake Forest, the wide receiver group. It's rare that I talk about wide receivers, but I think that's a guy that's raised the level of play of that very young room. Nayard, out of Texas, that's the guy that could step in and again raise that level. But overall, just everything just feels. I don't want to get too far over my skis, and I don't want to. Start, the Kool-Aid, right? But
you're going to start putting eye black on in 2 seconds, Jay. I know you are. You're going to rip your sleeves off.
It just feels like a good spot, even though, yes, I know our quarterback potentially is a true freshman, or is a true freshman, but the fact that he gets some spring ball in him, was the top quarterback recruit in the nation, and obviously with the history of the family within the organization, I feel pretty good about where everything is, and kind of how it folds. I look forward to hearing about the young guys that step up and get more confidence and make that big jump from year 1 to year 2 or year 2 to year 3, like I did, and, kind of get themselves in the mix and get ready to go and play some really good football.
Jay, last thought before we get you out of here, about 60 seconds. How disappointing was Friday night to you with Husker basketball falling to A&M?
Yeah, obviously very, very disappointing. Definitely took the wind out of the sails. There was a lot of buzz. I had stopped and saw a couple buddies, and I was like, I'm going home to watch the game. I don't want to be in a public place. That's kind of how I am watching Nebraska football. But I tell you what, it was just A&M. They're a really good basketball team. I mean, easily could have beat number 1 Houston last night. Their ability to get to the rim, the athletic ability, the talent, able to find some shooting, even though that wasn't their strength of the year. In that first 5 minutes, even though we were hanging with them, I go, this does not look good for us. I mean, you can just tell length and athleticism. This is a bad matchup. We always kind of struggle with those type of teams throughout the year on the road. Minnesota's and, the Rutgers that have those kind of long athletic players. Now, obviously, basketball talent was even greater with A&M, but you get everything that matched up there. Just too big. There's just too big of a task, and just, make some mistakes, and you can't shoot it well, and that's just going to happen. But it just shows you where you need to get better at. You got to go get some probably a true 5, get long, get athletic. And you got to find a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get a point guard. Just you see how, just in that game last night between A&M and Houston, I mean, those guys make the world of difference. Just in college basketball, this level at this time in March, point guard's a guy to get to the rack, can facilitate, can shoot. You got to have one, and whether it comes from transfer portal or within, I know Fred has identified this type of stuff obviously as well too. So it'll be kind of see how fun this offseason, see what all kind of transpires with all that.
Jay Moore with us. Jay, appreciate you, brother. We'll check in next week.
Yep, thanks, guys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks, Sully, for checking us out on Hail Varsity, the YouTube channel, the stream alive and well with some commentary. We would get into detail, but Steve, you're a beaut when it comes to choices for dinner and then snaps under center. I'll let everyone else do the math on that.
And sometimes gross, sometimes on a cold weather day, very helpful.
Yeah, it just lightens the mood. Always find the show, the StreamYard, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, where you can watch the show. Follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play is where you can also download the show. We appreciate you doing that. And finally, is Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. So minimal time. Sorry, it was football heavy today, but Shohei says he never bet on sports. Shocked his interpreter stole money from him. And away we go. So Pete Rose was on Twitter from some casino in Vegas saying, hey, I wish I had an interpreter 30 years ago.
Wow.
And here I was thinking
I'd have been on off scot-free is what Charlie Hustle said.
And here I was thinking Shohei's press conference was going to be him giving out his Sweet 16 picks for the upcoming weekend.
Poor timing.
Riding with UConn.
Come on. Man.
No.
Well, you can't have him in trouble, whether he did anything or not. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Too big a phenom. We'll dive into this with Jabba Chamberlain tomorrow. Also get Jabba's take on a big-time midweek showdown. K-State ranked, Nebraska knocking on that door. Midweek game tomorrow, Tuesday down in the Little Apple.
That'll be good. And then you start Big Ten play this weekend with Northwestern.
Boom.
So it's the Husker baseball season starting to get a little hot and heavy. My question with Shohei, though, is this an interpreter taking the fall for Shohei for his gambling? Is this an interpreter taking a half fall because Shohei was going to be looking out for him, so now he's out of his gambling debts, but you're going to take the fall saying it was stealing? Is that the case? I don't know, but I do know.
You got to word it so there's no law breaking by Shohei.
Yeah.
What I do know, I watched a little mini documentary about Japanese baseball and just the insanity of it all.
The gambling.
I mean, Shohei lived in a dorm till he was 27 years old. Or 26. My math's off there. 26. However long he was in Japanese baseball. Lived in a single room dorm, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have a wife. It was just him, his dorm room, and baseball. Like, they're playing baseball 12 hours a day. Wouldn't be surprised if he found some illicit gambling to pass the time during it. Whenever you're a superstar and you have good money, but you're still living in a dorm, like, didn't even live in a house. You know, I do wonder about that. If there's some bad habits that carried over from his time in Japanese baseball that made it overseas.
Well, and
it's not like you can't pay him off.
That's just the word, though, from folks who've played over in Japan, that gambling's very much a problem there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the salaries were for a Cecil Fielder or a Mike Greenwell or guys who went over to Japan, but it was a nice payday for him. In Cecil's instance, he went from Japan to the Tigers and killed it. It was great. But you also have the story about Cecil and Cecil's son, Prince, having to pay off Dad's alleged gambling debts. So tough look today for Major League Baseball, but it is almost time for opening day. It is Thursday. Opening day for Nebraska spring football. We'll have plenty of reaction to Athletic Director Troy Dadden's presser tomorrow. That gets going at 2. And we'll check in with Michael Bruntz tomorrow as well. Thanks for tuning in to Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Back at you at 4 tomorrow with Hail Varsity. See ya.